It was a moment that no one saw coming, the kind of moment that stops you in your tracks, makes you drop whatever you're holding, and lean closer to the screen. A black entrepreneur, calm and composed, stepped onto a national TV stage, ready to share his story. But what unfolded next wasn't just a conversation. It was a clash of ideals, a battle of wits, and a response so powerful it left an entire nation speechless. This wasn't just another interview. This was a turning point, and by the end of it, America would be left questioning everything they thought they knew about success, race, and the power of one voice. The stage was set. Bright lights, a live audience, and a TV host known for their tough questions and no-nonsense attitude. The entrepreneur, let's call him Marcus, had built his business from the ground up. He came from nothing. No connections, no silver spoon, just grit, determination, and a vision that refused to die. His company was changing lives, creating opportunities in communities that had been overlooked for decades. But tonight, he wasn't there to talk about his success. He was there to defend it. The host, a seasoned journalist with a reputation for stirring the pot, had already made it clear this wasn't going to be a feel-good segment. The tension was palpable before Marcus even sat down. The interview started like any other. Polite introductions, a few light questions to warm up the audience. But it didn't take long for the tone to shift. The host's questions grew sharper, more pointed, veering into territory that felt less like curiosity and more like an attack. How do you respond to critics who say your success is just a fluke? They asked, their tone dripping with skepticism. Marcus paused, his expression unreadable. The audience held their breath. This was the moment where most people would stumble, where the pressure would crack even the strongest resolve. But Marcus wasn't most people. What came next was a masterclass in composure and conviction. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't get defensive. Instead, he leaned forward, looked the host straight in the eye, and delivered a response so raw, so honest, it felt like a punch to the gut. He spoke about the obstacles he'd faced, not just as an entrepreneur, but as a black man in America. He talked about the countless times he'd been underestimated, dismissed, even ridiculed. But he also spoke about resilience, about the power of believing in yourself when no one else does. His words were a mirror, reflecting back the biases and prejudices so many people try to ignore. And as he spoke, something shifted in the room. The audience, once restless, was now hanging on his every word. Even the host, usually so unshakable, seemed momentarily thrown off balance. But just when it seemed like Marcus had turned the tide, the host fired back with a question that no one could have anticipated. It was personal, cutting, and designed to provoke. The room went silent. The cameras zoomed in on Marcus's face, searching for a reaction. And then he smiled. Not a smug smile, not a defeated one, but a smile that said, "I've been waiting for this." What happened next would leave America in shock, but that's where we'll have to pause for now. Because this story isn't just about what was said, it's about what it means. It's about the power of one voice to challenge the status quo, to inspire change, and to remind us all of the strength it takes to rise above. Stay tuned. The best part is yet to come. Marcus's smile lingered in the air like a challenge. A silent dare to the host and everyone watching. The audience, already on edge, leaned forward in their seats. The host, momentarily thrown off by Marcus's calm demeanor, hesitated. It was a rare sight. Someone who could hold their ground under the glare of the spotlight and the weight of tough questions. But Marcus wasn't just holding his ground. He was rewriting the rules of the game. To understand why this moment was so explosive, we need to rewind a bit. Marcus's journey wasn't just a rags-to-riches story. It was a testament to resilience, a blueprint for turning adversity into opportunity. Growing up in a neighborhood where opportunities were scarce and challenges were plenty, Marcus learned early on that life wasn't going to hand him anything. His father worked 2 jobs just to keep the lights on, and his mother, a teacher, spent her evenings tutoring kids in the community for free. They instilled in him a belief that education and hard work could open doors, but Marcus quickly realized that not all doors were created equal. Some were locked tight, guarded by invisible barriers that had nothing to do with talent or effort. By the time Marcus reached college, he was already thinking bigger. He didn't just want a degree, he wanted to create something that would outlast him. While his peers were focused on landing internships at big corporations, Marcus was sketching out business plans in the margins of his notebooks. His first venture, a small tech repair shop, failed within a year. But instead of giving up, he used that failure as fuel. He spent months analyzing what went wrong, talking to customers, and studying the market. His second attempt, a tech startup aimed at providing affordable solutions for underserved communities, took off in ways no one could have predicted. Within 5 years, Marcus's company was a household name, not just for its innovative products, but for its commitment to social impact. He wasn't just building a business, he was building a movement. But success, as Marcus would soon learn, comes with its own set of challenges. The more his company grew, the more scrutiny he faced. Critics questioned his methods, his motives, even his right to be in the room. "How did he get here?" they whispered. "Who's really behind this?" The subtext was clear. They couldn't believe someone like Marcus, a black man from a working-class background, could achieve so much on his own. And that's what made this interview so explosive. It wasn't just about Marcus defending his business. It was about him defending his worth. Back on the stage, the tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. The host, recovering from Marcus's unexpected smile, pressed on. "You talk a lot about resilience," they said, their tone sharper now. "But some people would argue that your success isn't just about hard work. It's about luck, timing, maybe even playing the system. How do you respond to that?" The question hung in the air, heavy with implication. Marcus didn't flinch. He leaned back in his chair, his expression thoughtful, as if he'd been waiting for this moment his entire life. "Luck?" he repeated, his voice steady but laced, with something deeper, something that made the audience sit up a little straighter. "Let me tell you about luck. Luck is waking up every day in a world that tells you you're not enough, and choosing to believe otherwise. Luck is working twice as hard to get half as far and still showing up with a smile. Luck is building something. From nothing, not because you want to prove people wrong, but because you know you're capable of so much more." He paused, letting his words sink in. The room was so quiet you could hear a pin drop. "So yeah, maybe I am lucky. Lucky to have parents who taught me the value of hard work. Lucky to have a team that believes in our mission. But if you think my success is just about luck, then you're missing the point." The host opened their mouth to respond, but Marcus wasn't finished. "And as for playing the system," he continued, his tone sharper now, "let's talk about that. The system wasn't built for people like me. It wasn't designed to lift us up. So if I've found a way to navigate it, to create opportunities not just for myself but for others, then maybe the system needs to change. Maybe it's not about playing the game. It's about rewriting the rules." The audience erupted into applause, but Marcus wasn't done. He turned to face the cameras directly, his gaze piercing. "This isn't just about me," he said. "It's about every person who's ever been told they don't belong. Every dreamer who's been dismissed. Every fighter who's been underestimated. This is for them. Because if my story proves anything, it's that we don't need permission to succeed. We just need the courage to try." The host, clearly caught off guard, tried to steer the conversation back to safer ground. But the damage, or rather the impact, had already been done. Marcus had taken what could have been a routine interview and turned it into a rallying cry. And as the segment went to commercial break, one thing was clear. This wasn't just a story about a black entrepreneur defending his success. It was a story about challenging the narratives that hold us back, about refusing to be defined by other people's limitations. But the biggest question, the one that had everyone on the edge of their seats, was what would happen next. Because Marcus wasn't just fighting for himself. He was fighting for something much bigger, and the battle was far from over. As the commercial break rolled, The energy in the studio was electric. The audience, still buzzing from Marcus's powerful words, exchanged glances and murmurs. Some were inspired, others uncomfortable, but everyone was hooked. Backstage, the production crew scrambled to adjust their plans. This wasn't just another segment anymore. It was a moment, and they knew it. The host, meanwhile, sat stiffly in their chair, glancing at their notes with a furrowed brow. They were used to controlling the narrative, but Marcus had flipped the script, and now the stakes were higher than ever. When the cameras came back on, the host tried to regain control. "Marcus," they began, their tone measured but with an edge, "you've certainly given us a lot to think about, but let's dig a little deeper. Your company has been praised for its social impact, but there are also critics who say it's all just good PR. How do you respond to claims that your initiatives are more about image than real change?" It was a loaded question, designed to put Marcus back on the defensive. But if the host thought they could rattle him, they were mistaken. Marcus leaned forward, his expression calm but intense. "Real change?" he repeated. "Let me tell you about real change. Real change is hiring people from communities that have been overlooked for decades and giving them not just jobs, but careers. Real change is investing in education programs that teach kids how to code, how to build, how to dream. Real change is creating products that solve real problems for real people, not just the ones who can afford it." He paused, letting his words sink in. "If that's good PR, then I'll take it. But I think it's something deeper than that. I think it's called responsibility." The audience erupted into applause again, but Marcus wasn't finished. He turned to face the host directly, his gaze steady. "You want to talk about image? Let's talk about image. For too long, the image of success has been narrow, limited to a certain look, a certain background, a certain story. But success isn't a one-size-fits-all concept. It's not about fitting into a box, it's about breaking out of it. And that's what we're doing, not just for ourselves, but for everyone who comes after us." The host opened their mouth to respond, but Marcus cut them off. "And let's be clear," he said, his voice rising slightly. "This isn't just about me. It's about all of us. It's about recognizing that we're stronger together than we are apart. It's about understanding that when one of us rises, we all rise. And if that makes people uncomfortable, then maybe it's time to ask why." The room was silent for a moment, the weight of Marcus's words hanging in the air. Then, slowly, the applause began again, this time louder, more sustained. The host, clearly struggling to maintain their composure, tried to steer the conversation in a different direction. "Marcus, your passion is undeniable," they said, their tone carefully neutral. "But let's talk about the challenges you've faced. Running a business is hard enough, but doing it while navigating the complexities of race and representation, that's a whole other level. How do you handle the pressure?" Marcus smiled, but there was a hardness in his eyes. "The pressure," he said. "The pressure is nothing compared to the stakes. Every day I wake up knowing that I'm not just representing myself, I'm representing my family, my community, everyone who's ever been told they don't belong. That's not pressure. That's purpose. And it's what keeps me going, even when the road gets tough." As Marcus spoke, the camera cut to a close-up of his face, capturing every nuance of his expression. There was pain there, but also pride, determination, and something else, something that made you want to root for him, not just as an entrepreneur, but as a person. Because this wasn't just a story about business. It was a story about humanity. About the struggles we all face, and the strength it takes to overcome them. But just as the interview seemed to be winding down, the host dropped one last bombshell. "Marcus," they said, their tone deceptively casual, "there's been a lot of speculation about your next move. Rumor has it you're considering a run for public office. Is that true?" The room went silent. Marcus, caught off guard for the first time all night, hesitated. For a moment it seemed like he might not answer. Then slowly he leaned back in his chair, a small smile playing on his lips. That's an interesting question, he said, his tone carefully neutral. But I think it's one for another time. The audience erupted into murmurs, the tension in the room palpable. The host, sensing they'd finally struck a nerve, pressed on. "Come on, Marcus," they said, their tone almost teasing. "The people want to know. Are you going to take this fight to the next level?" Marcus looked directly into the camera, his expression unreadable. "Let's just say," he replied, his voice low and steady, "that this is only the beginning." And with that, the interview ended, leaving everyone wondering what exactly Marcus had in mind. Was he really considering a run for office? And if so, what would that mean for his business, his community, his legacy? The questions hung in the air, unanswered, as the credits rolled. But one thing was clear. Marcus wasn't just a businessman. He was a force to be reckoned with. And whatever came next, it was sure to be unforgettable.